3 Israeli hostages have been released from Hamas captivity and are now home with their families. Yesterday, the whole nation cried tears of joy as these 3 girls returned home. But what no one is talking about is what happened in Gaza right as the ceasefire went into effect. This is crazy. All this and more on today's show. I'm Josiah Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, big news from Israel today. 3 Israeli hostages have been released from brutal captivity in Hamas's hands and are now home with their families. The 3 girls released in this deal were Romy Gonen, Emily Damari, and Doron Steinbrecher, all who were taken captive 471 days ago on October 7th. 471 days in brutal Hamas captivity. The 3 Israeli hostages were returned home as part of the first phase of the ceasefire/hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. Now, what many people don't know is that this deal almost died before it even began. Yesterday morning, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu informed the IDF that the planned ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, originally scheduled for 8:30 a.m., will be delayed until Hamas provides the names of the 3 hostages that were set to be released yesterday. According to Netanyahu's office, Hamas was required to submit these names 24 hours in advance of the hostages being released. Accordingly, just a little while later, it was reported that the IDF, in accordance with what Netanyahu said, were conducting artillery airstrikes and several drone strikes on Hamas positions in northern and central Gaza. According to the military, these operations were ongoing as the anticipated ceasefire with the terror group had not yet come into effect, due to Hamas not releasing the names of the 3 hostages who were to be released. Finally, Hamas released the names of the hostages, and the ceasefire went into effect at 11:15 a.m. Sunday morning, January 19th. Now, this, I believe, was just Hamas trying to show that they were in control of the whole entire ceasefire deal and could get whenever they wanted, which is mostly true. What many people don't know is what happened just minutes after the ceasefire effect went into effect in the Gaza Strip. Hamas terrorists started emerging from tunnels and hiding places all across the Gaza Strip, showing just how much control they still have of Gaza, even after the 15 months of Israeli shelling and bombardment of the area. Not only this, but videos have emerged of the residents of Gaza cheering Hamas back to the streets. Clearly, the Palestinians in Gaza view this deal as a victory for Hamas and the Gaza Strip, which frankly shatters the opinions of many around the world who say that most Gazans don't want to be ruled by Hamas. These videos, unfortunately, are reminiscent of the videos that came about on October 7th, where the masses of Palestinian citizens, civilians, people would call them, were cheering hysterically when Hamas brought back the bodies of Israelis to the streets of Gaza after the horrific massacre in Israel. They clearly illustrate, these videos, the sick and brainwashed state of the people that live in the Gaza Strip. The views of most of the innocent civilians in Gaza, people call them innocent civilians, we now know, and we have seen clearly throughout this war, are clearly and 100% aligned with Hamas. We'll be right back to the show in just 1 second. But first, millions of Christians visit Israel every single year. But do you know how many of them actually visit Judea and Samaria? Hardly any. Unfortunately, they're missing out on the place where a major part of the Bible was either written or occurred. Most tours, however, ignore this incredible region of Israel. Introducing the Heartland Experience, the only Israel trip that focuses exclusively on Israel's biblical heartland. Our next Heartland Experience trip is March 31st through April 9th of 2025, and registration is already filling up. Even though this is a tour, we also incorporate several volunteer experiences so that you can get your hand dirty while serving the land and people of Israel. We find that most people get much more out of their trip when they have an opportunity to serve and connect to the land itself. The Heartland Experience is not just the perfect way to experience Israel, it is the perfect way to experience the land in people that call Judea and Samaria, Israel's biblical heartland, their home. The Heartland Experience is the only Israel tour that we know of that focuses exclusively on Israel's biblical heartland. So sign up today at serveisrael.com/volunteer, or even better, click the link in the description below. In exchange for the 3 Israeli hostages who were released from captivity, Israel released 90 Palestinian terrorists back into Judea and Samaria and East Jerusalem. The Israeli prison service said, quote, during the evening, 90 terrorists were transferred from various detention facilities across the country to the Ofer prison, accompanied by personnel from the Nachshon unit of the prison service and with the assistance of the Israeli police. Upon the completion of reception procedures and receiving approval from the political authorities, all the terrorists were released from Ofer prison and Jerusalem detention center, end quote. The release of the terrorist was delayed and implemented after 1:00 a.m. after officials involved in the release process claimed that the Red Cross were intentionally delaying the release of the terrorist prisoners. There were reports that the Red Cross was delaying the release of the prisoners to make it look like Israel was delaying the release schedules for the terrorists. Most of the terrorists released were actually women, and what most people don't realize is who are these Palestinians who are actually being released? Most media outlets will call them Palestinian prisoners, as if they were in prison for theft or burglary. But no, the world needs to know who these people are. These guys are terrorists. The head of the Samaria Regional Council, Yossi Dagan, said, quote, the wholesale release of terrorists into Judea and Samaria is a clear danger to the country. It doesn't just endanger the residents of Judea and Samaria, and clearly endangers all citizens of Israel, especially the Judea and Samaria envelope, from Tel Aviv through Netanya, Hadera to Jerusalem. The Israeli government made a terrible and difficult decision. So right now, we don't really know how many Palestinian terrorists there are wandering through the streets of Judea and Samaria. Are there hundreds? Are there thousands? Are there tens of thousands? But now, after they released these 90 terrorists, we know that there are at least 90 more convicted terrorists that are now free and ready to attack more Jews all across Israel. And in the first phase of this ceasefire hostage agreement deal between Israel and Hamas, Israel is set to release 1,904 terrorists from Israeli prisons and another 1,167 terrorists who are arrested in Gaza during this war. The insanity of this kind of deal, one-sided deal, is just absolutely crazy. Now, there is a lot of emotion across Israel today. There is great joy and happiness for the family and friends of the 3 hostages who were released yesterday from their brutal captivity. Despite the joy of loved ones coming home, some in Israel are greatly saddened by the knowledge that 90 of the worst murderers in the world were released in exchange for these 3 hostages. They are saddened because they know that these 90 terrorists will, now that they are free, do anything possible to try and kill at least 90 other Jews for no other reason than because they are just Jews. Many IDF soldiers are extremely frustrated because after fighting for 15 months to destroy Hamas, they are now leaving the Gaza Strip and giving up most of Israel's strategic hold of the Gaza Strip back into the hands of Hamas. And even as Trump is gearing up for his inauguration today, he is taking credit for this deal, saying, quote, this week we achieved an epic ceasefire agreement as the first step toward lasting peace in the Middle East. But with all the confusion about what is happening around the world, and especially what is happening with this deal, the ceasefire deal, I just want to state some very simple truths that might be helpful for people to understand this situation. Hostages coming home to their families has got to be one of the most happiest moments for the nation of Israel. President Trump is wrong. The hostage deal will not help with lasting peace in the Middle East, period. Negotiating with terrorists is wrong and only encourages them to kidnap more innocent people, period. Releasing thousands of terrorists back into the streets is wrong, and it poses a huge security threat for all the citizens of Israel. Israel pulling out of Gaza for this ceasefire will make it 10 times harder to go back into these areas to finish the job once the ceasefire is over. America fully backing Israel to eliminate Hamas, the Houthis, the Iranian terror regime, Hezbollah, the PIJ, and the other terrorist organizations here in Israel will be a huge step towards lasting peace in the Middle East, not a hostage release ceasefire deal negotiating with terrorists. We need to put the blame where it belongs. Hamas is responsible for all the Israelis murdered on October 7th. Hamas is responsible for all the hostages taken captive on October 7th. Hamas is responsible for all the IDF soldiers killed in this war to protect the state of Israel. And mostly, Hamas is responsible for all the Palestinian deaths in the Gaza Strip, which includes those who are helping and fighting for Hamas and those who are not. Guys, thanks for watching. If you want to volunteer, come on the Heartland Experience trip, go to serveisrael.com/volunteer or just click the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Comment below what you think about what is going on here in Israel. And as always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening here in Israel. We'll be back soon here at the Israel Guys.